We ready? Javier Becerra, Chairman of the House Democratic Caucus, joined today by our Vice Chairman, Joe Crowley. We have our Assistant Leader who is with us, Mr. Jim Clyburn, who just wrote his book. I wish I had one of them with me. And our Chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, Marcia Fudge, as well. We had actually it was an eclectic meeting today. We had a discussion of some very important subjects that too often aren't getting the attention they deserve here in Washington, D.C. While everyone's caught up in partisan bickering, in this House, very little is getting done. We find that there are some here who prefer to shut down government than get us moving forward. We just had an inspiring meeting talking about how people got things done. From Mr. Clyburn, who had a chance to mention his book, Blessed Experiences, which we were fortunate he had a copy to give to a young woman named Jersey Vargas, who, not unlike Jim Clyburn, has gone through some tough times in her already 10 years of life. And it was a great experience to be there listening to someone who at the age of 10 years old has already learned what it means to fight for her family, fight for her rights as she tries to make sure that we move towards fixing our broken immigration system. Mr. Clyburn, in his book, talks so much about his experiences as a proud Southerner and certainly as a proud man of African American descent, but he talks about how we need to move forward. And our Chairwoman, Marcia Fudge of the Congressional Black Caucus, reminded us that we celebrate 50 years today when so many Americans took it upon themselves to bring freedom to many people who were still feeling the sting of discrimination through Freedom Summer. And how we should not forget the doers in America and those that are constantly trying to get things done. And so this caucus meeting that we had today was probably one where, while we didn't touch a long time on the subjects that we'll deal with this week, in many respects, we touched profoundly on the subjects that we're going to deal with this week, because what we touched on today was how all of us have to re-energize to get things done, because we have no time to waste and we have no excuses to make. And we were reminded of that by the likes of people like Jim Clyburn, Jersey Vargas, and we had our special guest, Lonnie Bunch, who is the executive director of what will soon be the National Museum of African American History and Culture under the Smithsonian umbrella. And once again, through Lonnie Bunch's presentation, we were able to really embrace what it means to be American, what it means to get things done, and what it means to remember what it takes to get things done. And so overall, I must say that this is one of those caucus meetings where I come out invigorated, believing that while we face this do-nothing, shut-down politics in the House of Representatives every week, the reality is we can get a lot done. And in case people forget it, we had a few folks today here in our Democratic Caucus meeting who reminded us of how you get things done. With that, let me yield to our Assistant Leader in the House Democratic Caucus, Jim Clyburn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I, like our chair, was very, very energized by today's caucus meeting. This, as many of you know, is the 50th year of Freedom Summer. And it reminded me that when that was taking place, I was a 23-year-old living in South Carolina, having not long before graduated college, where I participated in so many of the events that led to Freedom Summer. The thing that I was reminded of most was listening to Marcia Fudge talk about our activities over this summer, commemorating that, and listening to Lonnie Bunch talk about some of the issues surrounding the African American, the National Museum of African American History and Culture, reminded me of the fact that the highlight but low point of Freedom Summer were the murders of 3 young people who represented different cultures, different faiths, and different ethnicities. It reminded us of what the sacrifices that have been made to get us to where we are today. These were not sacrifices by only blacks, only Christians. These were sacrifices made by blacks, whites, Jews, Gentiles, Christians, people who make up what the United States of America is all about. And so today was a meeting a bit short on current policy, but very long on history and culture of a great country and a great people, and reminded us so much of what we need to do going forward to continue to build a more perfect union. And with that, I'd like to yield to the Vice Chair. Go to Marcia Fudge. Okay, yield to the Chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, Ms. Marcia Fudge.
She'll yield to our cleanup hitter.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Leader. I, too, had a wonderful experience this morning, but I want to say something very specific today, that voter discrimination is real in America. It is real in America 50 years after the Civil Rights Act, 50 years after Freedom Summer. And I'm reminded of that every day as I look at a John Lewis, who almost lost his life 50 years ago for the right to vote. It is time that we call on Chairman Goodlatte, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, to say to him, these people who believe in the Constitution, that it is finally time for us to live up to the promise of America, and that is that all men are created equal, and we should all have equal rights to vote. We have a voting rights bill that has been sitting in this House for months and months, and is being held up by Chairman Goodlatte, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. It is a bipartisan bill. Voting is bipartisan. So why should we not bring a bill to the floor? So I'm asking today, Mr. Goodlatte, help us to fulfill the promise of America and bring this bill to the floor.
Our Vice Chairman, Joe Crowley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank both my colleagues, Jim Clyburn, for being here today. Jim has not only written a book that has inspired those of us here in Congress, but I think every American, and I'm in the middle of it right now, Jim, so I have to bring it back to you, get autographed. And I also want the same deal that you're giving to Xavier Becerra for promoting your book this morning, so I want to be in on that. And Marcia Fudge, my good friend from Ohio, who's been a stalwart and been in many respects the conscience of our caucus as well. So thank you, Marcia, for all you've done in remembering this 50th anniversary. Of 3 individuals that I asked for Jim to just remind me the last name: Schwerner, Goodman, and Cheney. Schwerner, Goodman, and Cheney. Goodman actually went to my alma mater of Queens College, and there's a library named after him there today. And it does demonstrate the sacrifices that were made for civil rights and for freedom throughout the South and throughout our entire country. It just wasn't just about the South; it was about the entire country. And we still have reverberations of that today, and we will continue for some time, but we're making progress. But the need, I think, the focus on us now to pass the Civil Rights Bill here in the House and get it enacted into law, something that men and women have died for, of all colors and ethnicities and races, and we need to move on that to honor their memories and their sacrifices. We also need to continue to honor the sacrifices of the working men and women in this country as well. Sometimes we get tired of talking about what's not getting done, but at the same time, we have to talk about what's not getting done. We're not getting a comprehensive immigration reform bill done. The time is running out. We're not getting extension unemployment insurance, and time is running out. These are issues that affect the working men and women in our country. We're not getting a jobs bill or an infrastructure bill done, getting Americans back to work and improving the economy, not just for the people on the top, but for the people in the middle and the people lower rungs of the ladder as well. I would just say to the Speaker, Mr. Speaker, we have about 30 days left here to accomplish things. We need you to show some leadership. We understand there's some turmoil within your own leadership right now, But the American people can't wait for you to work through all these issues. We need actions right now. The distraction of the leadership vote that will take place this week cannot stop us from getting the work that we need to get done. No more distractions and no more excuses. Get these bills to the floor and let us make progress for the American people. With that, I'll turn it back to our chairman, Mr. Becerra.
We're ready for some questions. We know there are a number of issues that are pending, but we also want to thank our colleagues, our assistant leader, Mr. Clyburn, and the CBC chair, Ms. Fudge, for being with us, and all four of us are prepared to entertain any questions. Mike.
In Iraq, the White House is now acknowledging that it is eyeing missile strike. Wondering if each of you would support that idea of heightened military involvement there. We're hearing a lot of grumbling in the caucus that it's time to do that as well.
I will simply say that the U.S. has always been willing to step up to the plate to make sure that we're helping anyone who's interested in democracy and freedom stand up. I do hope that what this means, if indeed there is some signal that the U.S. may act in some capacity, is that means that the Iraqi government and its people are standing up and doing so publicly, which to me means dealing with the fact that you've got sectarian violence and separation by history and heritage and culture, and I don't know if there's any utility in involving ourselves in what is quickly descending into a civil war unless the leaders in Iraq are willing to say that they want to be a country, not a whole bunch of different places for Sunni, Shia, and Kurds. So I'm not sure where the White House is preparing to go. I'd be supportive of anything that helps us support democracy and freedom, but at the same time, you have to prove to me that the Iraqis are willing to step up and say that Shia will protect Sunni, Sunni will protect Shia, and the Kurds will do the same. This has gone on for thousands of years, and we need the Iraqis to step up to the plate. I don't know if anyone else. Yeah, let me see if anyone else wants to say anything on that.
I agree.
I think we're all in agreement.
Bueno, teniendo Jersey Vargas aquí con nosotros este día es otro señal de que no solo va a tener éxito con el asunto de su papá, pero creo que esta niña, ya casi mujer, con todo lo que ha hecho en sus 10 años, está comprobando que nuestro pueblo se va a levantar, a luchar y ganar. Y no creo que un político, un pueblo como Washington, D.C., puede ser obstáculo a lo que busca Jersey Vargas, como busca todo ese pueblo inmigrante que lucha para poder tener esa libertad y esa oportunidad. Para mí, Jersey Vargas es símbolo de lo que viene. Y ojalá pronto los políticos republicanos entiendan bien que esta ola es grande y viene en el asunto democrático de este país. Para mí, Jersey Vargas es una héroe.
If I could, I just want to comment on Jersey Vargas as well. You could not help but be moved by this young girl of 10 years of age and the command that she had speaking before our caucus. It was very touching, describing how she made multiple attempts to meet the Pope, Pope Francis, to explain to him the situations she was dealing with her family. The suffering is the term she used, the suffering that her family was going through. But then she spun it very quickly. She spun around and she said it wasn't just about her suffering, it was about, she said, the millions of people who are suffering in the United States because of their status here in the United States and the fact that their fathers or their mothers are being forcibly deported and ought not to be in that situation. It was very moving, I think, for the entire caucus. We gave her a standing ovation in the end. So she has, I think, and ought to be the symbol of why we need to have, as the chairman said, comprehensive immigration reform done as soon as possible.
I want to say something about Jersey's presentation because there was something she said that struck me. It had nothing to do with the substance. It had to do with her attempts to get to see the Pope. She told us of her experience standing in line and an insensitive lady behind her who kept pushing her out of the way, even at one point threatening her with the umbrella, and really pushed her out of line. But another lady, observing all of this, stepped forward and let her go in front of her, and she got to speak to the Pope. I've thought about so much of what is going on today and how we sometimes give up because we are opposed or we have adversity. She did not give up, and we're not going to give up.
Shifting gears, both of you gentlemen are on the Ways and Means Committee. You have a hearing on Friday with the IRS Commissioner. 2 years of missing emails. Lois, did that strike you as fishy at all?
Well, and that's why we're going to have a hearing to find out what happened. My understanding is that most of these emails preceded any of the events regarding the investigation that's occurring. But again, let's find out the facts. By the way, I hope no one's trying to raise campaign cash off of this as well. And so long as we're doing our constitutional obligation of oversight, let's go at it. That's what we're here to do. I hope no one's trying to turn this into yet another opportunity to raise campaign contributions off of something that is either no real incident or an unknown incident that we have to dig down deeper into. But either way, let's hold off on these feverish efforts to raise money off of everything that goes on in Washington, D.C.
I would just comment that I think it's endless, the need for intrigue and to find it in any way, shape, or form. I think it's been fairly universal that Ms. Lerner's performance has been abysmal at best. And there's no defense for the actions that she took. I don't pretend to understand why she took the Fifth Amendment. That's her constitutional right to do so. But it certainly doesn't help in terms of feeding the flames, I think, of the conspirators who are out there. And I think at the end of the day, as the chairman has just indicated, we have to have the hearing. We'll listen to it. We'll be respectful and get to the bottom of it. And in the end, we really need to move on, I think, to other issues that need to be addressed. The Benghazi hearings as well as the IRS hearings, I think, have been an incredible distraction to actually getting the things we need to accomplish here legislatively. We have the right, we have not the right, the obligation of oversight, but there has been no there for 2 years now, and I suspect we're not going to find a there at the end of this. There are other issues, I said, of oversight we ought to be engaged in and not to be distracted by these much longer.
On Iraq, would you like to see if the president does decide to go with military airstrikes that congressional approval, that he seek congressional approval for that?
I took the position that the last resolution still stands. And I think the authority is already there for him to take action. And I agree. I'm a great believer in drones. I think that this situation cries out for it.
Other questions?
10 years in Iraq and now it's devolved into this state of chaos. With leaders going to the White House today, what have you asked them? What message would you like them to send to President Obama?
My message isn't so much for President Obama. My message is for Prime Minister Maliki and the Iraqi people and the Iraqi government. Decide if you want to be a country. Decide if you want to get past the thousands of years of sectarian differences and be one people. Decide. We did everything to set it up for the Iraqis so they could decide. We gave a lot of treasure to make it possible for them to decide, both in terms of human life and taxpayer money. And so they need to decide, because we might go in some capacity with drones or airstrikes. I don't think we're going to do boots on the ground, and I would be against doing boots on the ground. But even if we tried to intervene in some way to help, who the heck are we helping? And will they be lasting? Because we did a lot of work over several years with a lot of, as I said, lives lost and taxpayer dollars used to set it up for them so they could be ready to decide. And so how many times do they need to decide? My message is not to the president. I think the president has been ready at every step of the way, whether it's been in Benghazi, now that we've captured one of the masterminds of the attacks that left 4 Americans dead in Benghazi, whether it was in moving forward and getting rid of weapons of mass destruction and chemical weapons in Syria. The president has been ready. Messages to al-Maliki and the Iraqis, are you ready? Decide.
Can I just say something, too, about that? I mean, I would certainly say to the president to not, whatever you do, listen to the warmongers, to stop listening to the people who sent us there, to stop listening to the people who sent us there with no plan. And so let's have a plan. Before we do anything, let's determine how we get out of Iraq. I would hate to see another generation of young people have to fight in Iraq, in a civil war. I mean, so let us do what we should have done in the very beginning. Let's determine what it is we get out of Iraq, how we get out of Iraq, and how we help the Iraqi people. Enough people have died in this war. And so I am hopeful that the president will look at every option, as he says he will, and I have confidence that he will make the right decision. But I hope that nowhere does his decision even consider those who sent us there.
Last question, Mr. Flynn? Not?
On Voting Rights Act, Majority Leader Eric Cantor had, at the very least, sounded positive about finding some sort of resolution. He had had some conversations with various Democrats about this. What does it mean now that he will no longer be Majority Leader for the future of the Voting Rights Act?
Well, I don't think it changes anything. I think Chair Lady Fudge spoke correctly this morning when she called on Mr. Goodlatte, who chairs the committee, to report the bill out of the committee. I never had any faith and confidence that Mr. Cantor was going to match deeds with his words in the first place. There was never an indication that he would. I really believe all of this rests on the chair of the committee.
Marcia, do you want to add anything? Thank you all very much.